Good morning, Sac City. Welcome into another edition of Sac City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend in the whole entire world. He is Aaron the Mukes. I am Mukes. And below us, we have your boy, my boy, and everybody's boy. He is AJ Johnson. It is a beautiful November 29th morning here in the city. Episode 125 coming your way. We've got some Monday Night Football to look back on in the fantasy world, as well as closing out, putting a final close, putting a bow on week 12 and all that occurred with our wins and our losses and our fantasy matchups. And then we take a look ahead into week 13 and tell you guys who you must add this week in the waiver world to get your week 13 started off right. Gentlemen, Monday Night Football last night, Indianapolis Colts falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's dive in to the Monday Night Football matchup. It's time! As we saw last night, the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to hold on over the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to hold on over the Indianapolis Colts 24-17. We saw some good days, some good fantasy performances from the guys who needed to. We also saw an injury that occurred. And AJ, your boy, Jelani Woods, coming up big for the first time in his career last night against the Steelers. Let's start right there. Let's start right there with your guy, because you were a year early on Jelani Woods. You were talking about him last year being a guy that to watch out for.
In draft season.
He's a rookie, Vinny.
Yeah. You were a little
draft
early.
Season, off season. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jelani Woods, though, breakout performance. Let's start there, AJ. Do you think that this is a sign for more to come?
I hope so. I mean, the things that I liked about him was what they acknowledged last night. I mean, he's a good big target, a nice security blanket. I mean, very few mishaps. They were finding him all over the field, having 9 targets, just peppering him because he found his spots. He found his zones, and Matt Ryan was looking for him. That's something that can be used over and over again. He's got red zone talent all over him as well, too. So, I hope they kind of get smart to that idea and use him down there. These tight ends with these guys, him and Mo Alley Cox, big body, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", giant tight ends with big areas for targets. Like, this is something that a guy like Matt Ryan can take advantage of, because we have all that space to hit and a guy that you can trust. So, do I think it's going to? The problem is their offense right now has been very unpredictable as far as who they're looking for. They know they need to get Michael Pittman the ball. Matt Ryan really likes Paris Campbell. Jonathan Taylor, their people are begging for them to run the ball more often. So I don't know if Matt Ryan, with his turnover issues and the way that offensive line keeps getting hurt and shuffling out, if he's going to have the opportunity to keep looking for guys. The plus side is, with a tight end like that, it's a security blanket to get the ball out quickly and be safe with. I think you can look at him as a deep roster stash. But you're also talking about a tight end position that from week to week, he can go back to next week being 1.2 with 3 targets and 1 catch like he had in week 9.
Yeah, I have some question marks. We see games like this out of people a number of times, right? We're talking about a guy who hasn't played much to start this season, just averaging 23 snaps on the year. Yesterday, he played 41. So was that an anomaly, or was that something of signs to come? Throughout this year, he's had 5 games where he hasn't played, whether that's injury or just not playing at all to start the year. He's had multiple games where he's been under 20 snaps. He's only had more than 20 snaps twice before yesterday's game. So you gotta wonder if that was more of a game plan or a game script thing going into it when we talked about the weak secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers and if they were going to be able to attack that. And I think that was a result, a little bit of that. But you do have to be encouraged with what you've seen. It's not an anomaly that you can get 9 targets, 8 catches, and 98 yards. You see the talent, the frame size. He's a good red zone threat. He was able to secure some balls after being hit and taking contact. So I think those were all positive. But if you're asking me, are we going to now start looking at Jelani Woods as a tight end 1 or somebody that you're comfortable setting in your lineup? With that passing game in Indianapolis, I'll say it again. Throw a dart at a tight end and you might get lucky. And if you threw a dart this week at Jelani Woods, you got lucky.
I can agree with that. I can agree.
Yeah,
with that.
I think like you said to end that with the tight end position, really it's a big time dart throw, and I'd rather be throwing darts at guys like Foster Moreau than a guy like Jelani Woods. Still has to go through his bye week in week 14. Has Dallas next week, Minnesota, the Chargers in week 16. Not a bad matchup there. But then the Giants in week 17. Nothing really that jumps out and says, "Oh, you must grab Jelani Woods moving forward." Or put a claim on him today in the waiver wire. The rest of the Colts look like you got your days from Michael Pittman Jr., 19 points, finishes the wide receiver 14, exactly what you look for out of him. Jonathan Taylor finishes RB12, so you had him right there at the borderline RB1 spot. Maybe not completely returning your first overall pick value or investment, but still 18 points. That's a great day for a running back. You can't complain. You'll take that any day of the week. Aaron, I wanted to mention Paris Campbell in this game because 3.4 points in this one, 2 receptions, 3 targets, 14 yards. I believe you selected him in your DFS play last night. A disappointing performance. We thought Matt Ryan loved to go to Paris Campbell, only 3 targets in this one. Do you think this game is the anomaly, or because Paris Campbell's that type of fantasy player where everyone was kind of hesitant to push their chips in on Paris Campbell until we really saw it. Then we started to really see it, and then he does this. Where are we at with Paris Campbell?
Yeah, I think this is just a result of being on the Indianapolis Colts right now. There's not much of a passing game there. I mean, even Michael Pittman had struggles at the beginning of the game, but you look at Paris Campbell, he's never been a guy that we're really trusting. And this is typical of players like this. It's where you get excited because there's a few good games. You get an 11 target game, you get a 12 target game, starts to produce a little bit, and then you realize, wait, it's Paris Campbell. And, I don't like talking about Ohio State receivers, but it's another Ohio State receiver, good player, but he's just not going to be consistent enough to really have that every week in and week out confidence level in him to put him in your starting lineup. This is why when we get excited about him, we always have to temper those expectations. You don't get points for past production. I don't get those 12 target games when I put him in my DFS lineup yesterday. So I'm hoping that he can continue with that. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that against a porous secondary. But I will say this. The Pittsburgh Steelers showed up. They were ready for what they knew the Colts wanted to do because they know the talk's been about that secondary, and they were able to shut it down. But the fact of the matter is that passing game was not good. Despite Michael Pittman's touchdown at the end there, they could not move the ball through the air for the majority of 3/4 of that game. And I don't know if it was Matt Ryan and his receivers just disconnecting, but for whatever reason, they were off kilter, and nothing really ever got going in that passing game. So I would more chalk this up as the anomaly, but I would also not go to the extreme of saying you expect another 10, 11 targets and 6, 7 catch game next week. I think Paris Campbell sits somewhere along the lines of a 4 or 5 catch day for 50 yards. And if he gets in the end zone, great. If you look at his highest scoring weeks, the 20-point week, the 23-point week, and the 18-point week, guess what? He'll score touchdowns. Every other week, it's been 2 catches, 5 catches for 60 yards, like middle of the road kind of stuff. So I'm not saying he's a touchdown dependent guy because he's small, but his big weeks has come as a result of scoring touchdowns, and the Colts don't score very much through the air like that. So I would have some concerns there.
Do you think that he could be a good play for a team that's sitting in the playoffs right now that ends up in the playoffs? I mean, look at the wide receiver matchups he has. The Giants are not a great one, but the Vikings right there, they're 26 against wide receivers. And then the Chargers as well. The Chargers sit 10th against wide receivers this year. We're going to be considering Paris Campbell come playoff time or kind of fading him out?
I would imagine you have better options than Paris Campbell come playoff time.
Okay.
He still has his bye week, which is not great in week 14 if you're trying to get into the playoffs. And then the matchups, it's not like he's going against Detroit or one of those teams. These guys they're not terrible, but they're not the best either. I just think there's going to be some better options. He's wide receiver 38 on the year, which is weird to say because you don't feel like he's been a wide receiver 4 flex play maybe. However, I do think there's some guys with better upside with the same floor, if not a better floor than him. So I would probably look elsewhere unless you're just absolutely desperate.
Well, that's what I was saying leading up to this. I was like, Paris Campbell's that receiver that like he sure would like. No one thinks that he's been a wide receiver before, but he has, and it's just no, we don't want to believe it, or we don't want to like buy into it, because then stuff like this happens, and stuff like this is going to happen, especially with how inconsistent that Colts offense can be. To put a wrap on the Colts side of things, I was able to cash out on my Monday Night Live wager. With Michael Pittman anytime touchdown. Thank you for that one, and a Steelers dub. So I was able to cap off my Week 12 gambling with a little victory.
It's crazy. In that same game last night, when I was playing DK, I ended up winning $50 last night in DK.
Nice.
I was going through the thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm playing Benny Snell. Like I was like, I'm gonna play Benny Snell. I was like, it was cheap option, and I was like, let's see if Najee Harris gets as many carries as he did. He went out, and I was like, it paid dividends.
Yeah, I almost put money down on a Benny Snell touchdown, because once Najee went out, and the odds for Benny Snell, they came out with the Steelers money line and a Benny Snell touchdown was at like 600 or plus 600. I was like, man, that's not a bad take. Like, I mean, they're running the ball. They're looking good on the ground. I mean, even before Najee left, Najee found the end zone, and I think that I was like, man, I should do this. And then Benny Snell ended up getting in the end zone. AJ, the Steelers running back group looks a little different now, though, with Najee Harris going down to an abdomen injury in that game. Early in that game, we then saw a running back committee by Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland. 13 touches for Benny Snell. 8 touches for Anthony McFarland. All of the goal line touches went to Benny Snell, though. He finished today with 13 fantasy points. Anthony McFarland finished with 6. Where are we at with the Steelers running back group if Najee Harris misses time?
I think Benny Snell's okay, but let's not forget Jaylen Warren was just out last night, and that's a guy they really like. He had a hamstring injury that was a hamstring injury that was bugging him, so they kept him out a little, to have him down the stretch. So if he can come back next week, he's the lead guy in my opinion. If Najee's out, he's a guy that they're going to use. But I do think Benny Snell will get more action than Jaylen Warren gets to Najee Harris, if you understand what I'm saying. So. I think Anthony McFarland was just a guy who, he was also active. They needed a backup, a guy to spell Benny Snell. So you look at that backfield as a Jaylen Warren and then a Benny Snell, and you might be seeing that goal line touches go to a guy like Benny Snell. He's been in that offense for a while. He understands what they're trying to do, and they do trust him. Just they had some more talent ahead of him, so he's there to help out when needed. But I would be looking for Jaylen Warren if you haven't already got him, and you should, because we've been telling you on the show for weeks now that you should have Jaylen Warren on your fantasy lineup. So go take one last look, see if he's there, and then I'm sure someone will forget to go around and get Benny Snell. And if you have the roster spot, maybe grab them both. Make sure you're protected despite whatever happens next week.
I don't love the Steelers running back situation. Part of the reason this is in this segment is because AJ just mentioned 3 guys. Who we getting? Like, are we sure it's Benny Snell next week? Are we sure it's Jaylen Warren? Are we sure it's Anthony McFarland? And if it is, how good has the Steelers running game been this year? Or was this just a product of playing the Indianapolis Colts and having a good night? I'm not fan of what's about to happen with the Pittsburgh Steelers if Najee Harris goes down, because to start the game, it was Anthony McFarland. Then Benny Snell went in there and he got hot, and they just let him keep rolling. I'm not sure next week it's not Jaylen Warren. I'm not sure next week it's not Anthony McFarland. As a matter of fact, Mike Tomlin before the game came out and said Anthony McFarland was the guy that they would lean on more, until I think he saw Benny Snell run, and then Benny Snell got the hot hand. So I would be very cautious about just going out and spending a bunch of fab budget, or going out and spending your number one waiver priority for the backup to Najee Harris. This Pittsburgh Steelers run game has not been that great this year, as evident by Najee Harris, who we all had as a top 10 back coming into this season, not really producing to the level he was supposed to produce at. And he's far more talented than any guy any guy's behind him. So I would be cautious of the Pittsburgh run defense or run offense. If I had to pick one and just pick one out of it, I'm going to pick Jaylen Warren despite the injury, because I think he's the most explosive. But I do worry that when we go watch them next week, it's something completely different. Now, again, they get a nice matchup here with Atlanta next week. So maybe if it's a 1 week thing for Najee Harris, you can find out who's getting the start and start him. But after that, you're not really sure. Got Baltimore. Do you want to play him there? I just worry about some of the who's going to get the touches. And I don't like playing that Russian roulette game when it comes to backs this late in the season.
I think the worry is definitely it's definitely a reasonable thing to have with this running back group, because like you said, we saw 3 of them, or we saw 2 of them we saw a group after Najee Harris went down. Jaylen Warren didn't play in this game, but I think we've been talking about it all season, how Jaylen Warren at times has looked even better than Najee Harris. He looks more explosive. He looks faster. He looks like a better running back than Najee Harris. And I think if Najee Harris misses time, I don't know how confident you'll be to play him in a playoff matchup. But if you look at his schedule, he's got Carolina to kick off your playoffs, and then the Raiders in week 16. Yeah, the Baltimore matchup in week 17 is not the best. But I like those matchups for a fantasy running back. You look at Carolina. Carolina has been bad against the running back position this year. They're at 21st against the run. And then you got the Raiders, who have been 26th against the run, who we saw Ken Walker just the other day do good things against. Not saying that Jaylen Warren is a Ken Walker, but I think that
sure. But we haven't seen him in that role. Like, we haven't seen Jaylen Warren be in every down role.
That's why I don't think you need to spend your top priority, like you said, on him, or all of your fab budget on him. But I do think you should consider maybe throwing a flyer, maybe throwing it out there that you're going to go get Jaylen Warren. Maybe take a flyer on Jaylen Warren, because he has been explosive. He has been good. And we've talked about it all season, how he's been better than Najee Harris, even when Najee Harris is in the game. And if he can string things along, and if Mike Tomlin sees that he is that dude, you can damn well believe he is going to be utilized when it comes to your fantasy playoffs in those 2 juicy matchups. I'm
not opposed to having Jaylen Warren on your roster. I've been telling people to go get Jaylen Warren every week, basically. My problem is we haven't seen him in a role where he's getting every touch. This is very similar to what I always say with the Zeke Pollard situation. And I don't think Jaylen Warren's Pollard by any means, but I'm just saying it's easy to look good when you come in and spell somebody and you're the change of pace guy. There's a number of change of pace backs in the NFL that come in each week and they have 8 catches or 8 carries and they break for 40, 50 yards. And we're like, oh, that guy looks better than the starter. Yeah, because he's the change of pace guy. When he comes in the game, defenses are scheming, okay, we think they're throwing the ball in this situation, so he can break one for 20 yards. We think they're going to do this in this situation. So it's a lot easier to excel in that situation than it is to say, Jaylen Warren's our starter. Jaylen Warren's going to get 20 touches. We're going to turn around and hand him the ball off in power to the right side and expect him to be able to run these plays and hold up and be able to have success. I think there's a difference in mindset and situation when you are a starter and you know you're going to get the bulk of the touches. I think Jaylen Warren would be the guy that I would feel most confident in, but that's also the guy we've been telling people to pick up for weeks. So he should already be on rosters. And if my biggest concern is don't go out and get Benny Snell. Don't go out and get Anthony McFarland thinking that you're going to get, the next guy in the Pittsburgh running back room, because they haven't been that good all season. What makes you think it's going to change all of a sudden now? Najee Harris is still the most talented guy in that backfield, and he hasn't been that great. So I would just have concerns, and I don't think there's league winners here. Let's just say that. I don't think Jaylen Warren's a league winner. I don't think that Benny Snell's a league winner. I think they could have some value, but it's not going to be what you've lost in Najee Harris.
I think Jaylen, that comes to the ending thing here with that running back group. It's just, I don't think you can trust any of these backs when it comes to playoff time. I think that Jaylen Warren could help you win a round in the playoffs, but I don't think you would start him and have the confidence to start him with the other running backs that you would probably have on your roster. Let's look ahead though and close out this Monday Night Football recap and kind of look ahead with Kenny Pickett. In this game, it wasn't. I mean, he hasn't been insanely fantasy relevant since the start of his career in Pittsburgh. But he's starting to become more and more valuable, and it's starting to look like he's coming into his own for the Pittsburgh Steelers and coming into his own early in the fantasy world as well. dynasty value for Kenny Pickett moving forward, AJ?
I mean, I really like that he's come along slowly. This is a guy who's getting better as the weeks go on. You look now; it's his third game with no turnovers, and that was something that was a big issue for him to start the season. And I like the fact that he's gaining chemistry with another rookie wide receiver in George Pickens. I do think as the years go on, this is a candidate in Kenny Pickett for the guy who has his second season be his sophomore Superman, or I don't know which alliteration analogy they use for that one, other than sophomore slump. And I think he's going to have the opportunity to be the other direction. This is a Pittsburgh team that I expect to be a lot better next season. I expect this organization to go out and hash out the issues that they do have on the offensive side of the ball. One being that offensive line. And if that's where it starts and he can get the time to get with guys like George Pickens over and over again, like Deontay Johnson, who, again, has got the opportunity, just hasn't had the production, but we know is talented. And, of course, Pat Freiermuth, he's liked every other week except for last night, apparently. He's a guy that I think you do enjoy the opportunity of having in a dynasty league going forward. So I do like him. I don't expect him to be, a top 3 QB pick or anything of that nature. But I do think he's a guy that you can have a lot of value in and be comfortable having in a dynasty roster moving forward.
Sound the alarms. Aaron's on board. I am more and more excited every time I watch Kenny Pickett. Yes, fantasy wise, we're looking at what kind of, do you throw 300 yards? Do you throw touchdowns? I don't really look for that stuff, especially when we're talking about dynasty league. I want to see what you're going to progress into. I said this about Trevor Lawrence last year. I saw something. You can see the skills. They're there, and you see it paying dividends this year. He's getting better, and only better and better. I think Kenny Pickett is far beyond what I thought he would be at this point in the season. I think now it was the right move to go to him. The upside is higher for him than it was for Mitchell Trubisky. The legs. I love he's able to run the football, and it's not running where you have to line him up and run, quarterback sweep with them, but he's really good at the quarterback draw. He's really good maneuvering in the pocket and finding alleys against man coverage when those defenders have their backs to him. I think his fantasy outlook for dynasty is going up and trending that way. I'm really excited for year 2 of Kenny Pickett. You say the sophomore. I think it could be a sophomore breakout. You look at that Pittsburgh offense, receiver position, that's pretty solid. Tight end, solid. Running back, if we all believe in Najee Harris as most do, solid. It's just the offensive line and him gaining that experience against good defenses. And I think he's doing that right now in his rookie year. So if you're Pittsburgh, you have to be excited for what you've seen from Kenny Pickett. I watch him throw the ball. I watch him run. He's confident. He's a good leader. I believe that now, I think Pittsburgh made the right selection. And I do think that he could be their quarterback in the future. And in turn, I think that's going to breed a good dynasty value going forward. So look for him to continue to creep up. I know he's only quarterback 27, doesn't have the touchdown passes. The offense has struggled, but I think year 2, there could be a breakout. He could jump into that, maybe get up there near the top 12 quarterbacks and be somewhere between 12 and 15. And I think that's a good trend when you're talking about dynasty.
So I was about to ask a question regarding that, but then you said next year you might see him start getting to that quarterback 12 range and get into QB1 level. I was going to say, if you guys are buying into a Kenny Pickett, at least in the dynasty world, some dynasty teams, some fantasy teams, if you have a quarterback by the name of Justin Herbert, he has not played well this season, and you might be out of the playoffs, and you might be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Justin Herbert has a great playoff schedule, and if your trade deadline has not happened yet, would you trade Justin Herbert and maybe would you trade Justin Herbert for Kenny Pickett and maybe some assets moving forward, like for next year in Dynasty? Okay.
No. Dynasty, if you're going to trade, then you're trading a veteran. If you had Tom Brady, and so you want to trade Tom Brady this year for somebody who's going to win. If you have like somebody that's trying to win now, maybe their quarterback's hurt or something, you do that. But we're not looking at Kenny Pickett at this point saying he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. I think Kenny Pickett is a year away from being Derek Carr. Okay, so I really do. I think fantasy-wise, not saying the elite, because I do think Derek Carr is a really good quarterback from a real football perspective. But from a fantasy perspective, I think he's about a year away from being Derek Carr. Derek Carr usually sits between quarterback 12 and quarterback 15. I think Kenny Pickett can do that in year 2. And then beyond that, that's when you start looking at the ceiling. Can Kenny Pickett be more? Can he crack that top 10? Can he get into the top 5 if he becomes an elite passer? We are often quick to judge. But I think if you give him 3-4 years, I think you can find yourself looking at Kenny Pickett as that in a few seasons. So I'm excited for his dynasty value based on what I've seen over the past month and a half.
All right, that's our Monday Night Football recap here. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeating the Indianapolis Colts. Lots of good performances in the fantasy world from that. But Aaron, we didn't get a chance to do this yesterday, and a lot needs to be discussed. Let's go into our fantasy injury report.
I didn't know if we were going to do this the same way, and then I get back and I'm soloed up. So I guess we are going to do this the same way. The injury report, Travis Etienne. These are fantasy impact injuries. And how we're going to fill those voids. Travis Etienne left with a foot injury, according to Vinny and his sources. He said he should be good in Jacksonville. They said they should be good and he should be okay to play. But what do we do if he's not? Darnell Mooney is out for the year, likely with that leg injury in Chicago. He's kind of been up and down this season for fantasy purposes, but that could open up some windows for other players. Aaron Rodgers and the oblique injury, serious concerns there. If you watch that game Sunday night, he was throwing every time he threw the ball, he was wincing. He eventually ended up leaving that game, and Jordan Love came in. We could have that Jordan Love discussion now. What do we think he's going to be going forward? Michael Carter left with an ankle injury. He is expected to be sidelined. Again, that running back room now with the Jets, no Breece Hall, no Michael Carter. James Robinson comes back in the fold. Big Bam Bam Bigelow Knight comes back in the fold. Elijah Mitchell hurt again. Unfortunately, he had looked good his first couple of games back, but he sprained that MCL. Looks like he's going to miss some time. One name that's not on this list is Christian McCaffrey. There is a lingering issue there, something where he's not 100%. We don't know if he's going to miss time or not. We'll have to keep an eye on that going forward, but I think he'll be okay. Najee Harris, and that's the big one from last night, is the abdomen injury, and we talked about his replacements there. So a lot of injuries. But Vinny, I wanted to get into the conversation. Maybe you and AJ can touch on this as well. Who are we looking at maybe to replace some of those guys? And it doesn't have to be from their team. Maybe it's some other guys that you had in that range of that running back room, and you might have to fill a spot. Who are we looking to replace some of those guys with? And I know AJ has sent me a list of waivers that mentioned some of the guys in Jacksonville, so maybe he can speak to that.
Yeah, and we'll jump into what their opportunities allow going forward. But Jermichael Hasty had himself a very nice game. That I know that's going to be the guy most people will look to. We tend to do this too, like he had a great game because Travis Etienne went down, so clearly that's the guy I have to have. Zay Jones had a breakout game. That's the guy I have to have. But let's not forget, like, they did pick up Darrell Henderson Jr. on Wednesday. If he had some more time, he might have played in this game. And I'm not saying he immediately takes over Jermichael Hasty, but there's definitely a role for him to be played as well. Despite what happened in LA, a lot was weird in that backfield in Los Angeles. So I don't know if I can blame any player for whatever happens in their future going on based off of Los Angeles. So I like both of those two guys. And then you can look at the Jets backfield as well. I'm not sure I don't know if James Robinson gets his spot back after being just a healthy scratch. I don't know what that was about, or if you really are looking for a guy like Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson to take over.
It's Bam Bam Knight.
Oh, sorry. And Bam Bam. And Bam Bam.
Hey, man, you put some damn respect on Bam Bam, mother effing Bigelow, Zonovan Knight. That's what
I agree. Put some respect. And James Robinson, they came out and said, Robert Saleh, we played the clip yesterday. Robert Saleh said why they played him, that he was still learning the scheme, that Bam Knight was more of a one-cut guy. I said that he was talking about they miss Breece Hall because that's exactly the style of Breece Hall's running. To your point, I do think James Robinson gets back in the fold this week, and he's the majority of the shareholder there. But put some respect on Bam Bam Bigelow.
I'm going to be honest. You brought up the comments yesterday about James Robinson. And you know me, I love James Robinson. Like that's my dude. I love James Robinson. I've been a big I drafted him just about every other week in our DFS or to start the season when he was a Jacksonville Jaguar. My love doesn't still stand the same. It doesn't. I think there are some telling comments from when Robert Saleh came out and said that he hasn't gotten up to speed. I mean, he got traded. They traded for him 4 weeks ago.
Philip Lindsay.
But that's my point. And what happened with Philip Lindsay once he left Denver? He died. So James Robinson might be falling under that same path. And I think there should be. I love Bam Bam Bigelow's on tonight. I do love him on a pure nickname basis. But when it comes to fantasy here, and if we're talking about replacements for some of these players, how do you not turn your attention to Ty Johnson? Because what did we talk about on Sunday when we talked about Michael Carter's impact in the fantasy world? It'd be the catches that he's going to see and the targets that he's going to see from Mike White, the check down king. It wasn't so much check downs from Mike White on Sunday, but that's what he's been known to do. That's what we've seen him do in the past. Sure, 1 week he didn't do that, but I don't expect Mike White to continue just being a baller when it comes to airing it out. So I think there's going to be more checkdowns. And if Michael Carter misses time, I think you throw in a Ty Johnson there. And that's who you're looking as the best replacement here. I think you brought up Darrell Henderson. And Aaron, you kind of actually steered me a different direction from where AJ went yesterday, because JaMycal Hasty, when coming in relief for Travis Etienne yesterday, he balled out. It wasn't like he just had a day like a Benny Snell or the other guys we were talking about, Anthony McFarland, when Najee Harris went out. JaMycal Hasty balled out. He was running the ball successfully. He was catching the ball when needed successfully. So I don't know if it's going to be Darrell Henderson or not. So you throw JaMycal Hasty's name out. I would throw JaMycal Hasty's name out as someone who even picked up Darrell Henderson because of the talent we've seen from him, thinking, okay, it's going to be him. But I don't know. I think there's something to be said about Doug Peterson liking the more explosive type of running backs, and I think that fits JaMycal Hasty a little bit more. And to wrap it up with Ty Johnson, he's got the connection with superstar quarterback Mike White. He's the check down king at the quarterback position. Okay, so Ty Johnson is the guy I think you should be targeting when it comes to that Jets backfield. If you were to go and get someone to replace a Michael Carter, if he in fact does miss some time and fade J-Rob.
Listen to all this wonderful fantasy take from our host, Vinny. Guy don't even want to speak, and he's just knocking him out the park this morning.
First of all, let's stop.
Superstar quarterback Mike White.
Let's stop with labeling Mike White as the check down.
Look at this man. Look at this damn man.
Let's stop labeling him
on the money to a wide open Garrett Wilson.
Let's stop labeling him the check down. First of all, I think that there's an opportunity for Mike White to push the ball down the field. I get it. Last year that Ty Johnson had some success in the check down game when Mike White started, but that was a very, very small sample size. It was also a different football team. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. They have a lot more weapons now. They have offensive line. Things are different now. They run the football a lot more, and I don't think Ty Johnson's very efficient at that. And I'm not saying Ty Johnson can't be it, but I think you're going to continue to see a mixture of running backs, whether that's James Robinson, Bam Knight, Ty Johnson. It don't matter who it is. This is the exact same situation as Pittsburgh, in my opinion. There is nobody that I'm trusting. I don't care if Ty Johnson gets 5 checkdowns. If it's 5 checkdowns for 12 yards, that did me no good. And especially if he only has 10 yards rushing. I just think we don't want to jump to the conclusion that somebody's just going to take over. I thought that was the case with Michael Carter when Breece Hall went down, because that's a direct line. We've seen him get the bulk of touches before. There's not a guy like that we've seen get that kind of work. And I think the Jets I think it'd be ill-advised for the Jets if they don't activate James Robinson in some capacity and at least have him active and on the field. Despite whether we feel about James Robinson, he's a veteran. He knows how to play the game. He's another guy that can get touches. Bam Knight didn't look like anything special to me. And I'm not trying to look. I'm not trying to knock Bam Knight, but he was he was good, I guess. 14 for 69. I think James Robinson could have done that against the Bears.
I think we're forcing it here. I think you were right. You nailed it to start your statement there. I think with the injury to Michael Carter and maybe the slow fading of a James Robinson and no one really being the clear-cut guy in the running back group for this team, I think this impacts more of the wide receiver position and makes you say, okay, you might have some league winners and maybe even Elijah Moore, not only just Garrett Wilson, but throw in Elijah Moore's name in there as well. When you look at the Jets playoff schedule, it's juicy for everybody. The Lions, the Jags, and the Seahawks there. I think with the no clear-cut guy in the running back group, maybe Robert Saleh lets Mike White air it out a little bit more. Maybe things do open up, like you said, for the deep pass, and it's the wide receivers instead who make an impact on this team and become those guys. Because fantasy owners, you do not necessarily have to always look at next man up within the position group if someone goes down. You have to look at the impact it does for the entire team. And in this case, I think the wide receiver position is the one that actually gets the biggest impact from this running back injury. You also mentioned Darnell Mooney goes down, maybe a Chase Claypool possibility coming.
Byron Pringle. I think that's he caught a touchdown this past weekend. Now, listen,
somebody? Didn't he kill somebody? What?
No, he was doing donuts in the parking lot.
He was doing donuts in the.
Got it.
Listen,
jeez.
I think it depends on who the quarterback is. But ultimately, this is going to come down to the run game for Chicago. I don't know that there's a wide receiver worth anything in Chicago. I'm not looking to pick up anybody there. You would strictly be, crossing your fingers and hoping that they could do something. So, who this really gets me excited for is David Montgomery some more, just because of the checkdowns and all that stuff. And we talked about it. Where did I say David Montgomery's value would come from? It would be the checkdowns late in the season. He got 4 targets, 3 catches, 34 yards. That's an extra 6.4 points that David Montgomery, and if he gets into the end zone in that game, that's a 20-point day. He didn't get into the end zone. But you look at the 3 weeks prior to the Atlanta game, the 3 weeks prior to that, he went 8-5-5. Without Justin Fields there, he doesn't get the targets. The targets are not usually there for him. He kind of sporadically will get 3 or 4, but it's not consistent. With Justin Fields, they don't check down. Without Justin Fields, expect some checkdowns to David Montgomery. That's where his value will be inflated as a result of some of these injuries to Darnell Mooney, to Justin Fields. So you have to like that for Montgomery going forward. But I don't think there's a pass catcher on that roster that I'm getting excited about just because Darnell Mooney went down.
See, it's the old reverse of what the Jets have.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears' offense it's just not exciting. You just don't know. It could be Claypool, could be Pringle. AJ just whispered under his breath Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet is going to be Cole Kmet, whether he's whether it's Fields, whether Mooney's there or not. I don't think that really impacts Cole Kmet very much. Even last week, he had 6 targets. All those weeks prior to that, he had 4, 7, 6 targets. I don't think much changes if you're Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's still going to be a guy that's going to be relied upon in the red zone, and you need him to score some touchdowns to really become a viable fantasy threat. Tight end 11 on the year, so he's been serviceable, but he has multiple games where it's just kind of duds because he doesn't get into the end zone, as many tight ends do.
Oh, nothing about Cole Kmet. Okay. I thought you were going to come in and talk about Cole Kmet, but that's fine. Okay.
Just did.
Well, I
thought I was pretty loud. I heard me very well.
Nah, you said. Well, of course you heard yourself very loud. He said Cole Kmet.
I might be hearing myself here, but y'all see the movie Pitch Perfect?
Yep.
Yeah. So the girl
the
that comes
whisper.
in there that's AJ right now. AJ's
yeah.
He called you an Asian girl.
I was so ashamed of Kmet that I didn't want to say anything.
There you go. All right, that does it for our injury report and our Monday Night Football recap. Let's now take a turn and put a close. You know what? We don't need to do this. That's where we can move on from. Let's put a bow on Week 12 in a different way here, and let's talk about where we were right and where we were wrong. Let's talk about the hits before we talk about our misses here, gentlemen. Aaron, your hits from Week 12.
Yeah, I got a few here that people should have been paying attention and listening. Derek Carr, quarterback 10 on the week. That was prior to yesterday. Didn't check in the Monday Night Football game, but Derek Carr, 22.8 fantasy points. We knew it was a juicy matchup with Seattle. But not only was it Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr had himself a good day too, finding Matt Collins. We knew this was going to be a high-scoring affair. We talked about it. Get all your people from the Raiders and Seahawks in. Derek Carr was a nice play there. Rashad White, running back 9, and this is what I talked about. No Leonard Fournette. He was my lock of the week. I said, go and get Rashad White. Put him into your lineup. It's going to pay dividends, and that's exactly what it did. He was RB9 prior to going into Monday Night Football. Top 10 running back for Rashad White. So that's a sign of things going forward. If Leonard Fournette misses time, get Rashad White in your lineups. He's going to pay dividends down the stretch. He's playing a number of snaps. Tom Brady now trusts him in the passing game. You have to like what you've seen from him. He played 90% of the snaps. So you don't have to worry about any backups in Keyshawn Vaughn and anything. Gio Bernard's not really a thing. So go get Rashad White. He's only getting better and better as we get down the stretch. Cole Kmet, I told you don't pick up Cole Kmet. Do not start him. And he was tight end 22. Didn't love the matchup, but I just didn't love without Justin Fields being there. That's who he was kind of these off-schedule plays he was finding his rhythm with. And we saw Trevor Siemian and, whoever else wants to throw the football. David Montgomery, the emergency quarterback, was not able to get him involved. And then I'm going to celebrate one more time. And that's Quez Watkins, my sleeper of the week. I hit again, double digits. You're welcome, Vinny. You followed my lead. You made some money. Anytime touchdown, 3 catches, 35 yards and a touchdown. I just thought it was a good spot for him and Devonta Smith to be there. Devonta fell a little bit short, came short of the end zone one play. I thought he could get in. It kind of threw his week down. But sleeper of the week, Quez Watkins, 12.5 points, 3 catches, 35 yards and a tutty. That's where I was right. Oh, you want me to talk about Josh Jacobs? Because he's a dog. Listen, I've been right all year about Josh Jacobs. I'm glad you just like playing this B-roll, showing the picture in the chest. Josh Jacobs is my fantasy MVP.
Josh Jacobs, I would like to take this moment to just thank you. You got me out of some tight spots this week.
Whoa. You obviously didn't watch the show yesterday morning, because a thank you is the exact opposite of what the direction that you were supposed to go.
You should apologize. You should apologize if you didn't watch the show. Everybody else has already apologized. You need to apologize for all your Josh Jacobs slander at the beginning of the season when me, the Muxiah, told everybody in the fantasy community to chill out, that Josh Jacobs was it. I heard Brandon Bolden. I heard Zamir White. Damn, they went and picked up Amir Abdullah, and I think his cousin called me and said Amir Abdullah was going to do something. Josh Jacobs he's on my screen for a reason. You don't get to say thank you. You get to say, I'm sorry. And that's the only thing you should say to Josh Jacobs and Aaron is, I'm sorry that I doubted you. I'm sorry that I didn't believe in what you were about. I'm sorry is the only words that needs to come out of your mouth.
Did I say he wasn't going to be good? Or did I just say there would be other people in that backfield?
Don't try to make an excuse. Just say I'm sorry and own it and move on.
I might have to go back and watch like 20 hours of tape because I don't know what I need to apologize.
Oh, you don't need to watch 20. I can show you 10.
And he came over to spell Josh Jacobs the same year. So Kenyon Drake's going to be that guy. And your third running back by committee.
Hey, called out. Kenyon Drake was still on the roster, and you were saying Kenyon Drake is going to be that guy. Say I'm sorry. That's the only thing you need to say to Josh Jacobs.
All right, so my hits this week. Clearly wasn't Kenyon Drake. I want to thank Jelani Woods making me look good. Interesting. Well, either way, thank you, and I'm sorry, and thank you, and I'm sorry. There was some reason for me to have thought processes that they would try to do some other things. They didn't, and I'm glad they didn't, and I'm glad you got me a win. As I was trying to say, Lord have mercy. All right, where was I right this week? A couple different places, actually. We can start with Derek Carr, but, since we already covered that one already. The other plus side, the guy I got you starting last night, Michael Pittman, it didn't look so good in the beginning. They had us in the first half. but he came in and got you 19.10 points. Outside of a very good week for some wide receivers, he came in at wide receiver 14. I think if you had some guys that didn't show up, he would have hit that wide receiver 1 range. But 19 points, you're still very happy about that with the Michael Pittman. And then I had some people for you to watch out. I told you not to start Elijah Mitchell. We were worried about that. We didn't know what the usage would be like. And honestly, outside of a good game, and he did have that touchdown taken back, and then he got hurt, but still it's fantasy, and he only put up 6.3 points, excuses aside. Aaron Rodgers, I asked you to sit yesterday, despite a 2-touchdown game, only put up 11.5 points. Good for QB 26 on the week. That's behind guys like Kyle Allen, like in his first start. Like, that's not a great sit. So let's put him down for Aaron Rodgers. And then Greg Dulcich, a guy who I was high on, had 3 great weeks to start the season. And then they just said, never mind, your time's over. 3.1 points in your tight end position yesterday. Not going to get it done. So I hope you sat those guys as I advised. You would have been very happy with me about that.
Yeah, I'm continuing to try and do more research into your Josh Jacobs apology, or into your Josh Jacobs, what you actually said during that show. Your words, the real words you said, it was going to be a running back by committee. That was the real words that was said from what I've heard. We'll go back to it. I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about an apology tour for Josh Jacobs. I'm sure every week
of people need it.
Josh Jacobs says something good. Aaron will be on here saying, "You need to apologize." Man, we apologized 3 weeks ago. Like,
just the people that haven't. Everybody at some point needs to apologize.
Yes. I will drop my little nuggets of my gambling world, my degenerate gambling world picks that I had right, because I'm never right in fantasy football when it comes to daily lineups. But I can be right at times when I put money on it. I had the most ridiculous bet pay off this week, gentlemen. I told you guys that I didn't think that I misread this bet, and I didn't actually intentionally make this bet, but it hit. Each of these teams getting 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals in their game, 8 teams getting it. The Ravens, the Jags, the Bengals, the Titans, the Bucks, the Browns, the Falcons, and the Commanders, all scoring 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals at least in their games. That was actually my biggest payday of the week, and it wasn't even a bet that I wanted to get into, but I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to have that pay off. As well as Aaron, you gave me 2 technically bets this week, because one of them was your Quez Watkins take, and I was like, you know what? He's right. I did more research on it, and I really like this pick. Quez Watkins anytime touchdown, that hit. And then my 2 mid-game bets that hit, Josh Jacobs after he scored the first touchdown, I was like, you know what? It's a Josh Jacobs day. This man is possessed. He's going to have a day. I put money on Josh Jacobs over 1.5 touchdowns. Live bet that one, that hit. And then my James Conner bet, that was my OG bet to start the day. My only OG bet to start the day that actually hit was James Conner anytime touchdown, because the Chargers, well, they suck against the run, and that's what ends up happening.
He had a receiving touchdown.
Yeah. So well, the other thing was I thought James Conner, I was worried about it because Kyler Murray scored a rushing touchdown in the game, and I was like, shit. Is that the Chargers rushing touchdown of the game that they let up? Like, is James Conner not going to get his? But he was able to secure his TD in that game. The only bet that actually hit for me in terms of my opening, my Sunday morning parlay, because D-Hop was not over 7.5 receptions, and Michael Carter died in that game, so he did not get his 3 receptions. So that's where I went wrong, along with a lot of live bets that just really didn't hit, and really wrong about Aaron Jones being the factor in that game. But gentlemen, let's go to that route where we were wrong with things. What's wrong? What are you doing?
I mean, Aaron Jones was a factor in that game.
Well, he didn't get what I needed him to get in that game.
He scored a touchdown.
He did not get over 64.5 rushing yards.
No, Oh, but okay, you're talking about the bet itself. I was like, he was definitely a factor in that game. I was like, he had over 100. He had 100 yards, 3 catches, and a touchdown. I was like, what are you talking about?
He did not get what I needed.
This is a fantasy show, Vinny. I know you're a gambleaholic now with this betting. Hey, the guy moves to Connecticut, and all of a sudden he becomes
it's a problem.
He becomes Joe Pesci in Casino.
The real problem is it's so readily available. Like before, if I wanted to place bets, I had to go through people and jump through hoops to place bets. Now it's literally an app on my phone. I'm a degenerate gambler. I'm gonna
make Vinny be my bookie. I'm gonna make.
I need to go to
unbelievable happens, Vinny. Set limits.
I need to go to school, or I need to take classes.
Hey,
I need help.
When you start live betting, when you're watching the game and you're like something doesn't happen, and you start live betting like you have been, that's when it starts.
Well,
be careful.
I have a system now, or hopefully a system to where I don't have big time money problems. I won. I don't bet like a whole like an insane amount. Like I'm not a big baller. I don't start exactly. And so I've been told. But I won some money this week, and I start off with every week with $10. So that's how I do it. So now the money that I won, I take it out, and now it's in a savings account. Like that's where I'm at. So I'm doing little things to avoid being a criminal, but I'm also down a dark path. Let's talk about where we belong, though.
It's so funny because you sound like me about 10 years ago before I stopped gambling and then had to get back into it.
Have it under control, guys.
It's only $10 a week, $40 a month, 12 times 40 as well.
Well, luckily I didn't start until November, so it'll only be
$80 a year.
Make sure you claim it on your taxes when you win. No, I'm playing with you. Let's get into my losers. My losers. Jeff Wilson. Yes, I said it. He had a good day, but it wasn't what we thought. 12.2. Remember what I said at the beginning of yesterday or Sunday? I said I had some concern that the game might get out of hand. They might not. Yeah, well, Jeff Wilson, he did okay. But it wasn't the day we wanted from Jeff Wilson. We're talking about a Houston Texans team that's the worst against the run. We go into that game thinking, okay, we got a shot at top 5 RB this week, and he fell short. He had a better day before the bye week. He had just 13 carries, 39 yards, no catches, or 1 catch out of the backfield. It just wasn't great, and this is my concern with going all in on a Miami Dolphins running back because of the style of play. They will throw the ball whenever they want to with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So you got to have some concern there for Jeff Wilson. He had an okay day, but not what we wanted. And then Tyler Higbee, an absolute donut. He was hurt coming into it. I wasn't really sure I want to even consider that, but I did say I thought he would be a heavy target guy, and he didn't even play. Like he was off the field.
You were right. It's okay. Like that might be where we start putting Tyler Higbee now with Matthew Stafford out and the quarterback woes there in Los Angeles. You had it right. Tyler Higbee. He doesn't get the first letter of his name. He was that bad.
He didn't get targeted. And they have no Cooper Kupp and no Allen Robinson. But this is the problem when you have a quarterback like Bryce Perkins who likes to scramble, not on the same rhythm as Tyler Higbee. But yeah, that was my bad. I thought he would see a bulk of the targets, and he didn't. So fade that Tyler Higbee pick, and this is why I don't talk tight ends. Don't listen to me about tight ends unless it's Travis Kelce, because that's easy.
Yep. AJ, what about you?
I'll go with the big one. Well, we'll start with the mention. Pat Freiermuth, I was wrong on. Mostly, like, what bugs me about it was the big thing I had for Pat Freiermuth was just the volume he was getting. 9 targets, 7 targets, career high 12 targets last week. And then they dropped him down to 4 targets, or 3 catches, 39 yards last night. So that was an error on my part. The big one, the one that hurts the most if you sat him, was Christian Watson, who was able to put up 21 points. Almost the same situation. Still only got 4 catches, just like he had in the last 3 games. But he was able to put up 110 yards, got into the end zone. And I did say he might fall in the end zone, but I didn't think it'd be to the tune of 110 yards on some deep passes. I mean, he had 27 yards per catch, and that's the type of stuff that gets it done. So, if you sat him, I'm assuming you had something else to do with that. I sat him in a league. I left like 48 points, 62 points in one league.
You shouldn't feel too bad about Christian Watson. It was 1 catch, 74 yards. touchdown. Like that, it was the catch and run on that Jordan Love slant at the end of the game. And I get it. It counts in fantasy, but 3 catches for 30 yards, the rest, 30 something yards the rest of the game. It was just a tough moment. That's the explosiveness that we saw from Christian Watson. It's why I labeled him going to be the best receiver coming out of the draft initially, is because that upside of what he did on that play. I said, if Christian Watson is that, he will be the best receiver that comes out of this out of that draft class. But we have to see it more consistently. He still had a couple of drops, but you're starting to see him feel confident, and you can see him gain his confidence, and that's a good thing for a young receiver. We got to give guys time, and I think Christian Watson is coming into his own. Still like Garrett Wilson a little bit more right now, and maybe George Pickens a little bit more. They're more polished, but we also knew they were more NFL ready than Christian Watson. So it's going to be fun watching Chris Olave, that young receiver core, Jameson Williams, who hasn't even played. It's going to be fun watching this young group.
If they start peppering Christian Watson with targets, he could be a scary wide receiver. And then when Romeo Doubs gets healthy, like this can be a very talented wide receiver group, man. I'm really hoping that, whoever the QB is next season actually gets into training camp and works with these guys and gets them prepared, because this is a very, very talented wide receiver group in Green Bay, and they just were underutilized and had no chemistry this season. And that's why we're talking about them being out of the playoffs in real football. But just wanted to let that
in real football. Fantasy's real, damn it. Fantasy's real. I didn't mention, I talked about where I went wrong for most of my stuff, my many live bet woes and the Aaron Jones thing, but where I really went wrong, where I will give credit to Aaron here, is that we had a little board bet on Friday or Sunday's show about one Derrick Henry going over 100 rushing yards. He did not. He only had 38 rushing yards. So Aaron, you were right about that, and I was wrong.
DJ, I will give you credit. DJ Reader played, right? He played, and you had talked about him being a huge impact for Cincinnati, and he did play, and it did help them. But Cincinnati did what I thought they would do. They were going to sell out to stop the run, and they did.
I mean, Derrick Henry had a good day in the receiving game, if that counts for anything.
He actually killed fantasy owners by not getting into the end zone on that long pass. Yeah, instead of making that a 15-point play, it ends up being like a 7-point play. People are like, "What the?" Yeah, he got caught.
I could not believe he fumbled that ball.
Yeah, you don't see that happen from Derrick Henry very often, getting caught from behind.
Great day for Treylon Burks, though.
I actually benefited from that. Benefited from that. Well, I saw his stats, and I was like, wait a second. How does he have all these points and then
no catches?
But then for work, I'm like trying to make like graphics and stuff for Tennessee Titans for the Titans win, and I see that they had a touchdown, and I was like, who scored this touchdown? Because on ESPN, it doesn't show up as a Treylon Burks touchdown. Like in the receiving game, it doesn't show him as a touchdown. In the rushing game, it doesn't show a touchdown. So it's like, where is this mystery touchdown listed in the Titans stats? And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why my mic muted. No, I was going to say we can honestly we can wrap it through this last part before we get to our waivers for the day.
I was going to skip the everything.
No, we don't have to talk. I mean, we just got to run through it. We got to keep people up to date. Listen, one thing that I want to do in this new fantasy football trend is there's a lot of people out there that will not tell you when they're wrong. They're always quick to tell you when we're right, and I always tell you when I'm right. But I'd want to be very transparent when we don't get it right, because I think that's important for fantasy managers to understand. We're not 100%. We're not going to get everything right, but we will also let you know, hey, we were wrong. We need to reevaluate. So I do think it's important that we share our misses with people as we celebrate our wins. And we can do it very, very quickly. We have a new segment. It's called Lock It Up. We all picked 3 locks. I had Rachaad White over 14.4, Devontae Smith over 12.2, and Gerald Everett over 9 points. I missed on Devontae and Gerald slightly with small numbers. Gerald had 7. Devontae had, I believe, 9. Hit on Rachaad White. So that was a nice day for me there. AJ, Vinny, what did you guys have?
Yeah, I think we all only got 1 out of our 3 right. But as I mentioned before, I had James Conner anytime touchdown that hit. And then my 2 misses on reception totals. Michael Carter died and he literally got 2 receptions. All I needed was 1 more for my bet to hit, and he did not. And then D-Hop was under 7.5 receptions in that game. So those are my 3 misses in my bet in my parlay for the day.
Well, we made some good choices. They just didn't all turn out the way they are. I was correct on David Montgomery. We knew he would be a focal point of that offense, above the 12.2. My misses, I had some double-digit guys who have been doing it week in and week out. And first one, Donovan Peoples-Jones, his first single-digit game in like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Only put up 3.6. I had him for at least 10.1. That did not happen. And then Jawan Johnson, up against the San Francisco defense, coming off of 3 strong weeks, double digits. He put up the Tyler Higbee, the goose egg on 2 targets, no points. Didn't see that coming whatsoever. I started him. It hurt me. So at least I was in pain with you for setting you guys wrong. I apologize, fantasy community.
Yeah, the Donovan Peoples-Jones not hitting. I mean, Deshaun Watson comes in this week.
Wait, you mean he's playing this week?
Yeah, and actually, I want to do this. I don't give a shit. We're live, and this is not supposed to happen this way, but we're gonna do this anyways. You, sir, give me a Deshaun Watson take for social media.
Oh, listen, I've been saying it all year. A matter of fact, let me start with this. I just traded Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Fields in the same deal for basically Dak Prescott and some receivers because I had Deshaun Watson on my bench. I expect Deshaun Watson to come out and ball. And if it's anything else, it has nothing to do with, is he ready to play football? Has he played football in 2 years? Whatever it is. My one reason for Deshaun Watson coming out and balling out is spite. To spite all the people that have, continued to be on him. And I'm not advocating for what he did, but this is what NFL players, this is what athletes do, is they use certain things as motivation. You have to be motivated if you're Deshaun Watson to come in and make a statement to get people's minds or try to get people's minds off the field stuff. If he goes out and balls out, the thing we're going to talk about is him balling out. That conversation is going to shift. I expect him to come out. First of all, he plays the Houston Texans. Quarterback 1 this week. If you're in fantasy and you've been holding Deshaun Watson all year long, why have you been holding him if you're not going to start him this week? You have to start him. You start him week 1 and you say, Deshaun, go be Deshaun Watson. The man can still run. The man should be able to still throw. He's got a weapon in Amari Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones, we've been talking about it for the past month or so. He's been a factor. David Njoku's back, and you have the best running back really in football in Nick Chubb in your backfield alongside with Kareem Hunt. Deshaun Watson will have a big day on Sunday, and fantasy owners that held him, you'll reap the rewards this Sunday. Expect a big day. 300+ yards in game 1 for Deshaun Watson.
There you go. I appreciate
it.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board against Vinny.
Against me? What? Oh, you and I play. Oh, yeah, dude. This is it's going to be.
This is a heavyweight fight this week between me and
this is the heavyweight fight. This is the premier game. This is your Chiefs Bills in our league this year.
The thing that sucks, I will say that I'm a little disappointed in is not that I'm not full strength, but I am missing James Conner this week, which is huge for me because James Conner's been balling and people kind of under the radar after that injury. He's had double digits in 4 straight games, 21 last week. He's been balling, but he has a bye this week, so that's tough. But other than that, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And by the way, DraftKings update before we get to waivers. I won both DraftKings on Sunday and on Monday. Not that I did great. Monday we sucked, but Monday we finished 80th and 87th or something, Vinny.
Yeah,
not good. But
I sucked on Sunday, man. I was like only 10 points out from first place to start last week, and now I am like so far behind, and I got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah, but it can shift in one
time.
It's time. There's still
6 weeks.
Plenty of time, but to further along that heavyweight bout, both of us 10-2, both of us in the same division, battling for the first round bye. You have the second most. You have the third most points in the league, or fourth most points. Yeah, you have the 4th most points in the league. I have the 1st most points in the league. And it's supposed to be a heavyweight. It is. The matches of all matches in fantasy.
The matches of all matches.
It is. And I just want to also throw this out there that I absolutely beat the shit out of Dylan in fantasy this week. I have the highest points for in all of in all of the season, 242 or 246. I put on Dylan.
Wild.
I wonder who was on your team.
Yeah,
it was a great day indeed. It was I knew it was going to be special even when Monday Night Football started, and I was like, I still have Michael Pittman and Najee Harris to go, and they scored touchdowns. It's game over. It was game over, man.
Good.
All
You're
right.
primed for a letdown week.
I am. I'm going to get absolutely massacred this week by you, and I know it's coming. We just got a report that Josh Jacobs won't practice at all this week, or is likely not to practice this week. That might not matter at all. You're on mute.
He deserves the rest.
Yeah,
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
the worst. All right, let's go into our Week 13 waiver wire claims. The guys you must have. Maybe not must have, but the guys you need to be targeting into Week 13 waivers. Aaron, go.
I'm starting with Van Jefferson, and it's kind of weird because we're all going the same kind of direction here. But for me, I say Van Jefferson because I like opportunities, and when we're talking about opportunities right now, well, there's a lot of opportunities with the St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. Van Jefferson is coming back from that knee injury. We spoke about it, but no Cooper Kupp, no Allen Robinson going forward. I think this is a good spot as Jefferson's has increased his snap percentage. He went from 73% of the snaps a week ago to now 87% this last week. He had 7 targets. Again, every week those targets have gone up. He just had 3 catches for 29 yards, but the Chiefs are a good football team. I think there's some good matchups coming up. You're talking about Seattle and Las Vegas. These next 2 weeks, you're fighting to get into the playoffs. Go get Van Jefferson. He's a great streaming option these next couple of weeks. I expect big days there. And then in week 17 in your championship, if you leave him on your roster, he plays the Chargers. And we've seen what they've been able to give up there this year. So Van Jefferson, again, maybe for deeper leagues, 12 team, go put Van Jefferson in your lineup for the next couple of weeks and reap the rewards.
He makes a comeback. Another one of my early season darlings, Sky Moore, WNBA player Sky Moore. I like him going forward. Only rostering 24% of sleeper leagues, 17.4% of ESPN leagues. Last Sunday had a team high of 5 catches. Gives him back-to-back games with 6 targets and 5 catches. He's been playing 40% of the snaps in the past 2 weeks. Before that, he was only playing about 25%. And this is with Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney out. Sky Moore does a lot of the things that they have those guys for. He's that type of quick, twitchy, fast guy who can catch the ball underneath and create for himself. I will say his matchups going forward aren't fantastic. Cincinnati's played very well. Denver's got one of the better defenses in the league. In week 15, you have Houston, whose secondary is pretty decent. But we're talking about Pat Mahomes throwing him the ball and Andy Reid drawing him up and finding him ways to get the ball. So I like Sky Moore to be one of those solid like flex area type guys. If you're looking for people down the stretch, even embattled by injuries, I like WNBA player Sky Moore.
I'm going with the easy take here, gentlemen. I'm going with the chalk. I'm going with the layup. We've been talking about him all week. It's wide receiver Zay Jones from the Jacksonville Jaguars, rostered in less than 40% of all major platforms. That's a problem in itself, but I'm not here to talk about the problems that we've had in the past. I'm here to talk about the future. This man has had no less than 9 fantasy points in 7 of his 10 games that he's had this season. He's wide receiver 23 since week 7. He has been phenomenal. He's coming off of a great day against the Ravens last week. And there's a trend that's happening with Zay Jones that I want people to start noticing here. In every game the Jaguars have played against a playoff team, Zay Jones has double-digit performances. Last week against Baltimore, 27 points. The week before, the weeks prior against Kansas City, 14 points. And against the Giants, 10 points. Why am I saying that? Because it matters. It matters. Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars offensive scheme relies on Zay Jones in the big moments, and it's shown week in and week out, and this man deserves to be rostered more than just 40% in leagues. And I don't know about, and to AJ's point, what he just said about his guys, I'm like, okay, I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. Zay Jones' playoff schedule, not that great. Faces 2 top 10 defenses at the wide receiver position, and it might not work out. You have faced the Cowboys, you got the Texans, you got the Jets. It might not work out. This is for those fantasy teams that are battling for a playoff spot. You get Detroit this week. He is going to help you get into the fantasy playoffs. He's got Detroit and then Tennessee leading up to the big showdown when you get there. If you're battling for a playoff spot, you need to put as much fab money as you possibly can to Zay Jones. You need to spend that number one priority on him because he is going to help you get into those playoffs and possibly help you win that championship to get you to the dance. He's going to get you to the dance. Get Zay Jones right now to help you get to the dance. He's going to be that dude. He's seeing the targets. He's that dude when it comes to the big-time matchups. Zay Jones. Get him on our team.
To your Zay Jones point, I think people need to understand that just because you have a guy that has a tough playoff schedule, especially if you're battling for playoffs, you can use them now. These waiver wire pickups can be used now. It's the same thing I said about Van Jefferson. Like 2 good matchups in a row, they can help you. Remember, there's still bye weeks. 2 teams are on a bye this week. 6 teams on a bye next week. It's going to be a thin week 14 right before the playoffs. That could be your fate on whether you get in or not. So make sure you prepare for that now. If Zay Jones is out there, go get him. You can play him next week, and you're not going to be so concerned when you got guys on a bye week that are going to impact you. I mean, we're talking not just bad teams. This week, Cardinals and Panthers, D-Hop, Hollywood Brown, not playing. Next week, you have the Falcons, Bears, Packers, Colts, Saints, and Commanders. Probably teams, especially at the wide receiver position, you're not missing too much, but you still got guys like Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Christian Watson, or Alan Lazard, guys you might have on your roster. Chris Olave. There's going to be guys that are missing. You're going to need people to fill those voids. So don't think about it as, oh, they have bad playoff schedules, I can't get them. They still can be used up until then. But I did have one more question for you, Vinny. You mentioned Zay Jones against playoff teams. So does that mean I should bench Zay Jones this week? Because he plays Detroit, and he hasn't been as good against non-playoff teams. So, and you said the Giants. And are we sure the Giants are going to be a playoff team?
Well, yeah, that is true. But really, no. To your it actually is a fair point. I did point out the fact that he's going up against a bunch of playoff. He's great against playoff teams, but really, it's not. He's not just going off against playoff teams. Like I said, 7 of his 10 games this year have been 9 points or better. He's putting up double digits on the reg. And Zay Jones, especially against a team like the Lions, you might see a Christian Kirk and Zay Jones day. Yeah, especially Travis Etienne out.
My last point here, we just gave you 3 wide receivers as our fantasy targets, but if you've been rocking with us this whole show, don't forget the guys we mentioned in the running back categories, the people who may be up to go, the JaMychal Haseys, the Darrell Hendersons, the Bam Bam Knights of the world. The respect is given. Keep an eye out for those guys. Don't just go all in
Kyron
on one
Williams.
Target. Put in some wires. It's go time. There's a lot of people battling for positions. If you're anything like some of the leagues I'm in, and everyone's 8-5 and 8-4 in a big old pickle and one big room, you're gonna need something to set yourself apart. So make sure.
Not everybody can be 10-2 and 9-3 like Vinny and I.
Yeah.
When everybody sucks equally, and you're in those type of leagues, that's how you got to do it. When everybody sucks equally.
Okay.
Oh, the sarcastic laugh. Oh. All right. That does it for another episode of the Sac City Podcast. We'll be back again at some point later this week.
Thursday.
Okay, there you go. We'll be back again Thursday live at 9 a.m. Eastern time right here on our YouTube page to get into our Week 13 rankings and looking ahead at who's got the good matchups, who's got the bad matchups. We'll tell you everything and so much more on Thursday live at 9 a.m. Eastern time right here at the Sac City Podcast. Don't forget to actually, you know what, AJ, we need this more than ever right now.
Hey, ladies, gentlemen. Hey, appreciate you rocking with the Sac City Pod, and that's exactly where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Sac City Pod. We are on a content push. We are going to be dropping content left, right, up the middle, any type of way you want it. At Sac City Pod, please hit that like, hit that love, hit that follow, hit that share at Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And don't forget to tell somebody, everybody, anybody, all the bodies. Tell them.
YouTube shorts, TikToks are flying, ladies and gentlemen. Content is rolling. Listen to AJ, do yourself a favor, and subscribe and share.
Follow us on TikTok right now.
Right meow. Right meow. You
Right
can
now.
leave. It's fine. You can miss my my ending to the show. It's okay. Leave right now. Go subscribe. But that does it. We'll be back again live 9 a.m. Eastern time right here on our YouTube page at the Sac City Pod, giving you all the things you need to know to win your matchups this week in Week 13. Until then, for my best friend Aaron Nukes and for your boy AJ Johnson, I am me. We will see you Thursday.
Peace out.
Holla.